something like long COVID or chronic fatigue syndrome, you are in exactly the right place. Recovery science is evolving fast, and around here, we're all about closing that information gap and bringing you the latest recovery insights as they emerge. And for many of you, my guest today needs no introduction. I'm joined by the incredible Chris SYKES-POPHAM over in London, UK. He is the creator of the Freeme app and also just such an incredible human being. Chris unfortunately got sick with MECFS after leaving the Royal Marines. He was really living life to the extremes between his fast-paced career and all the extreme sports he did in his personal life. I think his average Tuesday pretty much looked like something from an action movie. But then it was like his life sort of slammed up against a wall and everything ground to a halt. And many of us know that feeling all too well. So desperate for answers, he began exploring brain retraining tools like the Curable app and cutting-edge nervous system science. And within just 3 weeks, he was somewhat functional again. And his journey to freedom, full freedom, took a little longer than that. And that also put him on the path where he built Freeme. It is the only app designed specifically for people with MECFS and long COVID. Absolutely incredible. And today, this incredible human is here with us alive to answer as many of your questions as he can. So no pressure, Chris, but you're officially in the hot seat. Thank you so much for being here.
Not at all. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's lovely, and I will answer any question I can as best as I can.
All right. Well, as we get started, it's always exciting to see where people are joining from. So let us know if you're joining us live. Where are you right now? Where are you in the world? Say hello in the chat. And then I'm going to throw it over to our incredible producer, Brian, in the background, who's helping us out to field these questions. Do we have any questions yet, Brian? We do. Why do we hear from so many experts that only long COVID is curable, but not MECFS? That's from Johannes. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we hear that for long COVID because long COVID is new and because we are less certain on the answer. But I think what will happen in time, and this is the sad, truthful, honest answer, that we will have that both conditions will be seen exactly the same in the coming years. And we have already loads of studies that show that the same things are going on. And the same thing's actually happening in MECFS. We have a number of triggers that we know, and it causes the same set of symptoms. So in COVID, obviously, the trigger is COVID. But in MECFS, it can be hundreds of things. And we should use that as a little bit of evidence, as something to tell us that it is very likely to be the same thing going on. But why is long COVID, why are we told that we're more likely to recover? I think that we have to look at the MECFS world and be honest with ourselves and look at what's really going on there. Because I don't think it's that the long COVID, I don't think there's a difference in recovery rates. I think that there is a bias and incorrect notion in the MECFS world that recovery is rare. And then I'll give you an example, and that is something you will have probably sadly heard, that you would have probably heard at some point, that MECFS is incurable, and that is factually inaccurate. We have, tell what you think after watching 250 of Raylan's videos on YouTube, but there are many people who recover. And an interesting example is that 5% statistic. I don't know if you've heard it, but you will see it bandied around a lot online. Like it's the number one mentioned statistic on recovery. And yet it is one of 20, 30 papers, I don't know exactly how many, we have about recovery. And every other single paper we have suggests that it is way more likely than that. And yet we focus on that one paper. And it's something which we need to be a little bit better about. And I get it as well because I've been there, I know what it feels like. And I also know how unhelpful it is in hindsight being told that recovery is so unlikely. But go and dig out all the papers, genuinely go and dig out all the papers on recovery and then see that it's one mention of 5%. In reality, recovery is far higher. And I have a collection of studies which show that recovery is as high as sometimes in 70%, sometimes in cases of younger people using basic interventions, and recovery is far greater than 5%. I think it's actually a problem, to be honest with you. I think it's a problem with how we treat and deal with recovery in the MECFS world.
Yeah, I know. I even think of my own experience of CFS started with a really bad virus. Many of us historically have a post-viral condition. So you can see why there'd be a ton of overlap with people who have long COVID. And I know many people I've interviewed have said things like, who got long COVID, they go in these long COVID communities, and it was a bit more optimistic. And they're like, yeah, it's going to take a few months, you'll figure it out. And then they go into an MECFS community and it was all doom and gloom, like, you'll never get better. So even those attitudes, it's not just believing in recovery makes you recover, but it really adds stress to your nervous system if everyone's telling you that, oh no, if you're in this category,
it does.
It's going to work for you. Yeah.
And you get it right, as in genuinely having been there and been on the other side. I understand it because I was literally that person who thought and told other people that the condition I had was incurable and I wasn't going to get better. But it's also not helpful. And I say that to my previous self. It wasn't helpful thinking of it that way. And it's not helpful focusing on that statistic. It's not kind to yourself. It's not kind to anyone who wants to recover. But yeah, I was there.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. All right. What do we got next? Hi from the UK. Hey, Lee. Could I ask if your app helps with neurological symptoms? Daily, I suffer with tremors, cramps, twitching, blurred vision. All conventional testing is coming back normal.
Yeah. So thank you for adding that bit at the end. You definitely, and everyone first needs to go and get checked out by a health professional, and you need to run those tests, and you need to do whatever you're doing in line with some real guidance from a qualified medical professional. But that aside, we see this question. You must have seen this question, Raylan, endlessly. Like, does it help with this symptom? And then insert any number of symptoms. And it's right to treat each one of those and ask, can they be a symptom of a neurological condition or of nervous system dysregulation? And the answer to the latter and to both is yes. It's worth doing your own research. And here's one anecdotal, non-scientific test. But sit down with Chat GBT and say, can a dysregulated nervous system influence, and then type your symptom. And then you will everyone you listed briefly from memory will come back very likely with a yes. But at some point, my message to you would probably change. It would say, look, understanding the science and what's going on here is really important and helps you. And then there's a stage where it's useful to step back from that once you know and feel that this is the answer, and to focus on this science and start on your nervous system and trying to retrain it so it is genuinely not seeing threats in day-to-day life. But a short answer, yes, I believe they can all be neurological symptoms. But yeah, get them checked out first. And we'll see that question. It is probably one of the most commonly asked questions, I would say. What do you think, Raylan?
Yeah, and I loved what you said about Chat GBT. I'm just thinking how much things have changed over even the past 5 years, not just in terms of AI, but before coming across information about this was really hard, incredible information. And you can go into GPT, and of course, it's not a doctor. Sometimes it gets things wrong. You have to be cautious and do your own due diligence, but you can ask it all sorts of questions about nervous system regulation and its connection to your symptoms, and it comes back with answers, all the stuff that we're saying here on the channel, because there's so much science now, it's evolving so quickly. So there's a lot to back up what we're talking about here, which is incredible.
It's genuinely useful.
Great question. All right, who we got next? Hey, Matt, thank you for your question. Any advice on how to manage work and recovery? Oh, such a good question. I've been back in part-time work for 6 months, and I feel like it's slowed down, stalled my recovery. Thanks for that, Matt. Great question.
Yeah, so there's a number of things here. Firstly, you're going back to a place where I imagine before at some point you had to stop working. So almost if you were me and if I were you, I would be experiencing anxiety about any increased workload and going back to that place. And it would definitely be worth really exploring in some sort of non-superficial, in a deep level, what you feel about work, what you feel about when you go there, what you feel about expanding and generally and doing more in general. I think that, or we know that our perceptions of what are about to happen to us matter. So if you are going to work and you think, this makes me feel really crap, and this is going to exacerbate my symptoms, our brains are prediction machines. They're just literally working out what is coming next. And we know that they are always predicting the worst case scenarios because they're doing that to protect you. And that anticipation of symptoms ramps up the nervous system further. It further dysregulates it. It's another source of stress. And that stress, you know, is impending. You know you're going to work tomorrow, the next day, or the next week. And so there's a bit of chicken and egg here where you know you're going into a stressful scenario. You've then linked it with symptoms. And then that anticipation that when I go to work, I get more symptoms is likely to be part of the equation. And so I don't have any exact advice for you without speaking to you and asking you how you directly feel about work, and so many other questions. But I would consider the role that is playing, like what you're anticipating, what you're truly feeling about work. And I would also consider that there might be a case for boundaries there, like how are you setting out your work life and your personal life? Do you feel comfortable going into work? If you can get to a scenario where you feel comfortable and safe going into work, I think you will find yourself having fewer symptoms as a result of the work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's something that comes up a lot to the point where I have a video coming out just on this topic soon because it's such a big one because many people find they get to a certain level of their recovery, whether we're calling it 75% or whatever number we throw at it, and then it can feel like you're stuck there. But when we think about recovery in terms of nervous system regulation, you're slowly expanding activity. It's gradual re-exposure therapy. And in the beginning, you're going to start small in your safe little bubble of a world. And you're probably going to bring in things that you like what are some time with friends, some time outside, maybe get a little bit more active. And then you get to the point where you can do quite a few things and you think, okay, I'm going to go back to work now. And then all of a sudden all these symptoms come. But it's one more thing that you have to show your nervous system that it's okay and it's safe. And now you're probably dealing with the higher stress things. And maybe for some people, some of the things that brought on this revved up nervous system in the first place. So if your job is a high source of stress, and it's not just work, it's every aspect of it. It's the commute, it's the colleagues, it's the meetings, it's the hours. So yeah, I mean, just like with every other thing that you had to retrain your brain and nervous system, it's going through that with this as well. So it can feel like you're stalled, but really it's not. It's just, this is just what recovery looks like. Do new things, symptoms come up, you reassure your brain and body that you're okay, and you go on.
That's really useful. And you said as well, like that the gradual part, right? One of the first things you said was you're gradually exposing yourself to them, and you can't feel comfortable if it's not gradual. If someone tells you to go out and run a marathon tomorrow, you can't do that and feel comfortable. So gradual is really important. And the other thing I think you sort of touched on is that what's different about work from the other things is that there's inherent less control. You can't fully control it. You're putting yourself at the mercy of other people, and it's always going to be a little bit harder. But yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it. Thank you, Rayla.
Yeah, great question. All right, what do we have next? We have a question from Noah. Hey, Noah, thank you for the question. Could you please talk about the value of a lifestyle-based approach like Freeme uses versus medication-based approaches? It's hard to trust that I can fix a dysregulated nervous system without medication. Yeah, great question.
I like this question. I like this question because I mean, well, firstly, I don't think we can fix a dysregulated nervous system with medication. There are some things which affect it. There are plenty of physical things that affect the nervous system. But if we had some really good ones, we probably wouldn't be experiencing symptoms, or few people would. And I think that would be really, really sad. It would be really, really sad, because we wouldn't be fixing the root problem and why the nervous system is dysregulated, which is that something is not in balance in our lives. Our brain is constantly perceiving stress and danger. And so if we are perceiving stress and danger constantly, it might be worth saying, which would you rather deal with? Would you rather deal with the downstream symptoms, or would you rather change your life so that you're living it in a kind of more, I don't know the correct way, but a truer living of your life in a more happy, healthier, less stressed life? And I think it's genuinely worth mentioning that if you took people who had recovered using this approach by focusing on the nervous system, and you asked them, all your conditions aside, all your symptoms aside, would you have wanted to do this work anyway? And you would have the most emphatic 1000% yes, this is the best I've ever done for my life. Like, I remember speaking to someone a few months ago who'd recovered, and he was like, I'm still doing all this stuff. And I was like, oh, why are you still doing it? And he was like, it's the best thing I've ever happened. And this is exactly how I feel. Like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, despite being the most miserable, horrible thing I've ever been through. And I was chatting to someone last week where we were comparing Royal Marines basic training, which is one of the most miserable, horrible things going in life. I would not recommend it at all. And I said, I would rather go through that several times than through MECFS again. And yet it is the best thing that ever happened to me. And so I've gone on a long roundabout loop, but medication does not, that we have at the moment, does not permanently fix the core problem, which is that the nervous system is kept in fight or flight. Lifestyle might be the not quite the right term, but it's about how we are literally perceiving the whole world around us. And it's about gently reprogramming our brains so that we perceive the whole of life in a more positive and effective way. So the nervous system is not seeing threats, and so it's staying in a calm and regulated state. But that, as far as I'm aware, is one of the few, or the only way, to truly regulate the nervous system. And you can go a level deeper here and say, that's the core work that will do it. And then you see lots of people doing huge amounts of things like breathing exercises, meditation, somatic work, and all of those things are genuinely brilliant. And I have used them all and encourage everyone to use them. But they might not fully solve, again, the root problem, which is the fact that you are always stuck in, or you're always in that state, or you're in it far too often, a state of fight or flight. And so we're not trying to temporarily fix it or get a quick fix. We're not trying to stay in a state of rest and digest. We're trying to just rewire our brains to view everything in a more happy, healthy, normal, natural way. So that's a very long answer to your question, but I think it's worth making a long one.
Yeah, it's challenging because none of us were brought up to believe that all of this pain and suffering could come from something in your nervous system, in your brain. And we've all been socialized, most of us, to believe that medication is the answer. And it is for many things. And only your doctor can tell you, perhaps there are things that you specifically need medication for. We don't know that. But when nervous system regulation is the cause, there isn't medication that can do to fix that. But I think the biggest leap is the education around how pain and symptoms are created, so you understand what turns them on and then what turns them off. And that helps you understand better how something as odd sounding as nervous system regulation could get you out of this world of pain that you're in right now. Because I know it's a leap. It takes everyone a while to get there. And even the people who do this and specialize in this for a living struggle to keep up with the science because it's evolving so fast, but it is backed by science. And it's a legit thing.
I think everyone as well, it's such a good point, but I think everyone has been at the point where, has started at the point where I had the exact same thought and thought there's no way this can be the answer. And you're right, education is the answer because, I can only speak for myself. It was the answer for me because education made me realize how powerful the nervous system is, that it is controlling every aspect of our body, that it can take over every system in our body, and it can cause incredibly real, debilitating, severe symptoms. And the education genuinely helps to lower the fear response, because when you understand that that's what's going on and you're finally content that that's what's going on, funnily enough, that also reduces your stress load, because you realize you're not fully broken, can recover. And so it is this, again, it's another a chicken egg scenario. But yeah, you're very right, Raylan. Education is a huge part of it.
Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you for that. All right. Nan Curley, we have a question. What is the number one takeaway that helps you the most when you are recovering? And thank you so much for doing all of this. Number one thing.
The number one thing for me was how I responded to symptoms. No two ways about it. And this, I think, is probably the same for the majority of people, not everyone at all. But for me, it's how I respond to symptoms. What I mean by that, when I, before I came across this work, when symptoms came on, I would respond with fear and with worry. And I didn't know it at the time. When I first said that, I was like, no, I don't respond with fear. And I also thought, I've dealt with fear before, and I'm not dealing with fear. But it becomes so normalized. And I can sort of tell you my internal narrative, what it sounded like at the time. And when symptoms started to come on, and I would have periods where I'd be okay for a couple of days, but I would again be sort of anxious, knowing that another crash was coming. But my internal narrative would sound like this, and I'd just be like, oh God, like how bad's this one going to be? How long is it going to last? What new depths am I going to plunge to? And what condition have I got? Because I don't know any condition that can produce these symptoms that can make this bad. That's what my internal narrative would have sounded like. And when I learned about this, I shifted my response to respond in a very different way, and through a message, and give myself message of safety. I reminded myself that these symptoms were uncomfortable, they were horrible, I didn't want them to be there, but that I was safe, but that I was okay. And changing how I responded to symptoms was the number one thing that I did.
I think that is a great answer and a great question. All right, what do we have next here? Hello, Patty. I often think that me getting better is just temporary. Don't you ever think that maybe your recovery is only temporary and that you might relapse one day? I struggle with that a lot. Yeah, a lot of people do, Patty. That's a really good question.
Yeah, I think they do. I actually don't that much. I genuinely don't. But I occasionally have funny thoughts and catch them and almost laugh at them. I mean, I've only been recovered, what I think about 2.5 years. But no, I'm very, very confident that my recovery is here for good. I think one of the benefits of taking a full kind of neuroscience approach, and very focused on that as opposed to other things, you understand what's created the symptoms. You have a better idea of what is creating symptoms, and then when you know it and you understand it and you've put into practice the things, then you're confident you can do it again in the future. There are also absolutely people who, and I think I've spoken to many, and it is very common to have those thoughts and to wonder. But here's the answer. Here's what I think. If you wanted my advice, here's what I would do. I would build up a list of evidence of all the reasons and all the times that you're still okay, and I would go to that in your time of need, because it is incredibly normal for those thoughts to come on. I don't have a belief that I'm going to crash again, but sometimes when I just get a cold, a little thought will pop into my head and go, what if this is MECFS again? What if it's going to, end your life? What if it's going to be terrible? And I just see that thought, notice it, and I kind of have a little giggle at it and go, actually, do you know what? I've got 2.5 years of evidence that I can run marathons, I can climb up mountains, I can do all of these things. I just slowly build up my list of evidence. And the last thing that helps is time. As time goes on, you will have had less time when you were unwell, and you'll have more and more and more time when you are well. And evidence will build up, and in time, hopefully you will move on with your life, and you will forget about it, you will leave the community, and you will live a happy ever life. But as time goes on, those ratios change in your favor. What about you, Ren?
Yeah, it's a question I hear a lot from people who are still on their recovery journey. I suspect we all feel that and go through it. I'm trying to think of all the, 250 plus people I've interviewed. I don't think anyone has expressed fear that it will come back. And I think it takes a little while initially to trust it because you might have this expectation that you're never going to have any symptom again and you're just somehow this superhuman that's going to feel good 100% of the time. But that's not how humans work. So the way I understand it is that once you come through this and pass this, you are now chronic symptom free. You're going to keep getting symptoms for the rest of your life. Your nervous system and brain, your threat assessment systems we want it to. They're going to try and keep you alive. But now you know the difference. Now you know when they come up, you're never going to get stuck there again because you understand how they work and you know how to downregulate your nervous system and get it back into a good place. So it's sort of like you walk away with the toolkit. Like, if your car broke down and then you get the training to become a mechanic. So your car might break down again temporarily again, but you know how to fix it. So you're never going to be stuck there again. Yeah, that confidence
That's a really
does
good
come in
analogy. Yeah, I
time.
like that.
Yeah, great question. All
Yeah.
right. Next, we have Emma. Emma, do you have any advice for people with ADHD and an overactive mind and ME where the body needs rest, but at the same time is itching to move and do more? Another great question.
Yeah, I think we see. I don't want to categorize ADHD as overthinking. I understand it's a lot more complex than that, but I think that we see characteristics and tendencies in people with these conditions where similar things are occurring, and I think you are not alone in experience. I know you're not alone in experiencing that. I think there's a huge number of people, and maybe even some crossover between the conditions. I am not an ADHD expert, but I imagine that trying to stop endless thoughts, rumination, and a constant busyness of the mind is pretty difficult by trying to stop them directly. And therefore, when that happens, we often try a different approach where you, instead of trying to avoid it, trying to stop your mind doing something. It doesn't work like that. It's that old analogy of when I tell you, whatever you do in your mind, do not think of a black cat. And you instantly create, or 99% of people create an image of a black cat in their head. Your brain doesn't work in a way where you can just tell it what to do, and sometimes you can't tell it to focus on other things. Sometimes in this world, we try and focus on other things, and there's genuine value in doing that at times. But sometimes there's this other approach you need to take, which is to actually stop and focus directly on those thoughts and feelings as they're coming up. So with the thoughts, you're taking 5 minutes to sit on the sofa and you're just noticing every single thought and going, I see you. I notice you as a thought. And you're disassociating yourself from them. You're reducing their power. You're understanding that they are not facts. The thoughts that your brain's come up with would not stand up in a court of law. They are not facts. And disassociating themselves is useful. And then taking time to hear them all out. Where are they coming from? They're coming from a feeling or from a place. And you hearing that voice out, focusing on that place and out in a place of from a lens of safety and from a place of curiosity is genuinely really useful. So if the former didn't work, try an approach of deliberately paying attention to them.
Yeah, and I heard in the question as well, the need to rest versus this need to move. And of course, all humans need to rest, but when nervous system dysregulation is at the core of what's going on, you're not going to rest your way out of this, even though it feels like I need more rest, I need to get more rest, but it's actually not more stillness that you need. It's just more training around for your brain and your nervous system and sending those signals of safety. And we can talk a little bit, will definitely talk a little bit more about this later on, but it's one of the things that I love, Chris, about your app is that it's very simple and easy to use, yet packed full of all sorts of resources, because it's clear that you've designed it for someone who is even in their worst day and the thickest brain fog and inability to focus. There are tools that help you to work through that. So yeah, I wouldn't worry so much about not being able to get enough rest in, and more just about finding tools that work for you and the way your mind works to help you move through this. Yeah.
There's also that strange thing, thank you for noticing the second half of that question, which I completely ignored. There's a strange thing that happens in our world where when you get energy, you don't trust it. And so as soon as I remember coming out of a crash, actually feeling kind of 80% better for a few days, but being in this hyper-vigilant state, part of it is actually learning to when you feel good, that's you trying to not have that fear of the next crash. You're not necessarily trying to anticipate it. I personally, and I think the majority of the practitioners in this field and the experts that I speak to would not necessarily recommend being like, okay, I've now got to really strictly limit myself and stay between a certain level. In fact, I think you should embrace the energy you have. And I'm not saying go and do something wild, go do something crazy at all. But I think that it's understandable, but sometimes when you get energy, so if your body feels like it needs to rest and have energy at once, it's worth kind of exploring that a little bit, being curious and being open to the idea that actually you having energy might just be a really good sign. But our brain will focus on the thing about needing rest, and you must rest. And there's a balance. The answer is find balance.
Yes, really good point. Thanks for that question. All right, next we have, I really just need to come to terms, to peace with wearing glasses. I don't like wearing them. Okay, thanks for your patience as I clumsily take them on and off. All right, we have from Nellen, can you explain more how your app with AI works individually per person?
Yes.
Good question.
So at the moment, I think there's, firstly, I have mixed opinions on AI. I sometimes are very skeptical and generating funny images of my cat, I then question about the various other implications of AI. But I think there are things you can do that are really powerful. And Freeme, I think, is a genuinely good example. And it gets me incredibly excited about what we can do with it. But in answer to a direct answer to your question, when you speak to the chatbot in Freeme, that chatbot is backed up by all of Freeme's program and then a huge amount of additional information. And in time, we're just going to keep adding to that. And in the background, we look at the questions it gets asked, and then we reprogram it so that it has a better answer. So in time, it will have every single answer to every possible question. How does it do it individually? So as you chat to it in the next couple of hours, there's an algorithm behind the scenes that's processing your conversations and adding memories to your settings, and you can see them. You can literally click the little settings and you can see all the things it's learned about you, and they're just a series of statements. So for me, it might say, Chris has recognized he's a perfectionist. Chris has recognized these following things might have kept his nervous system in fight or flight, and it might ask you questions as well to generate that awareness. And then it stores little snippets of your conversations that it thinks are relevant. And then when you then next ask it a question, once it's done and processed that for an hour or two, so when you then ask it a question the next day, it then is feeding you stuff back based on the entire Freeme program, all the nervous system regulation tools across the entire field, and it knows what it's learned about you. So it's like, here's this technique, but actually for you, you actually might find this other one more effective, or you might want to do it in this way because I know this about you. So it's just constantly learning, and you can see the little snippets, and they're constantly improving as well. How it takes those snippets, the way it records them, everything is about that, is developing and evolving. But basically, go to your settings and you can see what it's learning about you, which is quite cool.
That is absolutely incredible. So amazing. Great question. Thanks for that. All right, what do we have next here?
I also want to, there's so much more. There's so much more we can do with AI. And I could talk about it for a very long time. But at the end of each session, imagine now as well, so you do a session and it can ask you questions and said, what did you think about that session? Did you think that applies to you? Because I mentioned this before, but what's keeping us all in fight or flight is different. Maybe it's 30 different things, and our job is to work out which ones they are. So imagine being played a piece of content and then saying, what do you think? Is that you? Do you see yourself in this content? And then it building up information like that. And at the moment, it already sorts and shifts your lessons and gives you the content you need. But we can do that in a cleverer way. Now imagine it's using all your memories to then say, okay, over the last few days, we've been talking about this, and it's really clear that this thing is affecting you, and this is specifically what might be keeping your nervous system in fight or flight. Here's the content you need, and here's the tools you need. So yeah, I get excited about what it can what it can do for us. And over the next months and years, you'll continue to see the evolution of the Freeme app as we implement these things and we get excited about them and work long hours, more than we should, to try and bring them to life.
Well, I can vouch for the response has been really good since you were on the channel the last time. This app pretty much went viral. So many people were excited to try it, and the feedback has been really good. So your long hours
I should also say, because this
paid off.
is live, that some people at the moment have been given access to it. I'll say a few people have been given access to it kind of at random, and a few people who'd been in. But we're going to set it live for everyone next week at some point. And so I promise you, by the end of next week, it will be live for everyone, and you'll all be able to go onto it. Because if you go on it right now, it might not be there, but there are people who, and you're clearly one of them that's tested it. And so for everyone else, it'll be around and available next week.
Incredible. All right, next question. Hey, Josephine. Josephine is asking, I find it so difficult to prove my nervous system that it is safe when I experience symptoms from other severe conditions, example, autoimmune, many symptoms overlap, fatigue and pain. Any tips? Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is another case where when you try and endlessly tell your nervous system it's safe, it sometimes doesn't work. For some people, just the knowledge that the nervous system feeling unsafe is contributing to their symptoms is enough for them to turn it off. And then you can try talking and telling your nervous system that it's safe. And for some people, that generally works, and it is an approach I would recommend trying. And then there is these category of people, and I think you're one, who very understandably, when you try and tell your brain, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe, it doesn't believe it. It knows the feeling and the intent behind what you're saying. And those other techniques are not, they can work in parallel, but there are a group of people, and I think I've experienced it myself, where you can't kid your nervous system it's safe. And for those people, I would again recommend doing almost an opposite approach, where I would firstly sit with that feeling of the opposite feeling, that you're not safe, that feeling of fear. And I would hear out those fears. I would focus on it. I would literally spend 5 minutes sitting there, and every time attention goes away from that feeling, I would bring my attention back to that feeling and listen to it almost as a voice. And actually, sometimes when it feels heard, when you've paid it attention and when you've sat there, it then can start to dissipate, because it's coming from a deeper thing than kind of your thoughts and your reasons. And a lot of practitioners would, when I recommend the same. And there are lots of experts in this field out there that almost don't use a kind of approach of trying to tell your nervous system it's safe. Genuinely, I think the two aren't at odds, but I think there are some that are better than others. And I think that approach, hearing it out, focusing on it, and letting it speak, is sometimes a good approach that's necessary.
Yeah, and to the person who asked this question, or to anyone else where this is relatable, because I know when you have multiple conditions, different things going on, it's hard to find that feeling of safety. But I would invite you to stay curious about what impact nervous system regulation might potentially have on these other conditions, because the experts out there agree that there is no condition that exists where nervous system regulation isn't a factor, isn't going to have some impact on your symptoms, because your brain and your nervous system create all the symptoms that you have, regardless of the condition that you have. Now, of course, some conditions require physical interventions, some do not, but I would just stay open-minded and curious about, like, hey, whether you're label a symptom coming from one thing or from another condition, just start to think of them all the same and not think of them as like, well, this is one I can fix, but this one is permanent, so I can't get rid of that one. And just to stay curious. You might be surprised with the impact it's having on your symptoms as a whole.
I think so. There's another part as well, or another potential thing that can be useful in acceptance. And that acceptance is literally saying to yourself, or trying to practice acceptance, is saying that you accept where you are in this moment. You accept your symptoms are there. You know that they are unpleasant and that you don't want them long term. But in this very moment, working on accepting them and actually sitting with them, not trying to push them away, is another useful way, which funnily enough turns around and actually gives you a sense of safety. Because if you agree, if you make an agreement with yourself that you're not going to try and push them away, that you do accept them, it's like, okay, well, I've allowed you to. And so I think that does strangely give you a sense of safety at times. It's a part of the picture, at least, and many find that very helpful.
Yes, very important. Yes, very well said. I agree. All right. What do we see how many? Let's get through as many as we can in our next few minutes. All right. Hey, Steph. I healed with nervous system work years ago, but chronic fatigue returned in February after COVID. How do I make sure the work sticks this time?
It's a good question. I would need to know. I would want to know what helped the first time and what's changed from now until then. And so I would probably start with some introspection about what has changed, what's going on in your life, how you really feel about it. Are there some things that haven't been dealt with? And so the thing, I think in this case, was it long COVID that's reignited everything. You can absolutely see how that has triggered it. And then when it's persisting over a series of months, it's a sign that something else is going on, and we're obviously here telling you that potentially that thing is nervous system dysregulation. And I think it's worth looking at what has changed, what in your life is different, and how do you truly feel about it. And then, as you know, there are huge numbers of people where it resonates differently at different times. But you are really lucky in a way. That might sound, and I don't mean that in a flippant way or in a horrible way. You're really lucky and you have a bank of evidence that it worked the first time and that you cured a condition that other people said was impossible, and you got to a state of recovery. Have faith. You can absolutely do it again. You have achieved it once before and you will achieve it again. And the final part I'd say is part of this when it's come back is you have to, before you can fully move on, you have to kind of let go and grieve for being back here. There's a huge amount of emotions that come with being back where you are, having recovered, and grieving for the fact that you're back in this state. When you truly do that, that's when some people find you can move forward. And of course, sorry, I should give a tiny bit of background here. We're talking about emotional suppression, which came as huge news to me as one of the things that tons of science that shows that when we suppress emotions, it keeps the nervous system in a state of fight or flight, and it's one of the most powerful things. And I say that because, to think it back to the point, because you will undoubtedly be facing a lot of emotions about being back in this crap place again. So I think that you should feel those, let those out, and before you try to move forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just, virtually everyone I interview talks about how full recovery from these conditions is this process of internal transformation, not becoming somebody else, but just becoming more of yourself, seeing yourself, knowing yourself, accepting yourself, having boundaries, being your authentic self, being that person out in the world, and having those tools, like Nicole Sachs talks about visualizing an emotional reservoir, like this giant beaker that we carry around inside of us. And it helps us because we don't want to express every emotion in the moment all of the time. It's not always appropriate.
Yeah.
So sometimes they get put away for a bit. But if you're just continually shoving things down and never taking some scoops out, that sets off all the alarms in your system. So if I would invite you to think about, how have I been using all the tools that got me out of this the first time? Have I let some things slide? Am I doing that emotional work? Am I getting at the core of what is putting my nervous system in this dysregulated state? And yeah, trust yourself. You did it once, you've got the tools. You'll do it again.
Definitely.
Really great question. All right, who do we have next?
Answer.
Carmen. Hey, Carmen, what can I do when my mind gets so blank and my breathing kind of freezes? It's too uncomfortable to be awake, only I still struggle to rest. Well, that's a complicated one.
That is. Can you flash it up one more time?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian, get that back up there. Oh. Yeah, it sounds like one of those ones where it'd be much better to have a conversation because I think we'd have a lot of follow-up questions. So when my mind gets so blank and my breathing kind of freezes. It's too uncomfortable to be awake, only I still struggle to rest.
Rest. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think with all of these situations, you broadly have two choices. But you can choose to try and fight and fix the things you're experiencing, or you can try and practice acceptance. And again, we have studies that show that when we can accept our experiences and view them as, and recognize that they are uncomfortable things that you don't want, but that they are safe, then that helps calm the nervous system and reduce the symptoms. So with all these things, and you could insert in your question, you could insert a number of other horrible experiences people with MECFS and long COVID and chronic pain and any chronic condition go through. And I would actually work on trying to accepting them. You're just saying, I see you there. This is part of my experience. I know you are unpleasant, but you are a safe experience to be there. And I accept you here and now. I'm not saying that that I don't want to be better in months' time, but I accept my experience right here and now. If you can do that, if you can research, practice acceptance, it helps. And I'm obviously asking a lot because I'm asking you to accept something which is a deeply unpleasant experience. But acceptance, time and time again, rather than the other option, which is fighting, which is trying to fix it, which is Googling what this means to you once you've been checked out by a doctor, Googling what this means to you, Googling all the bad things that can happen, ruminating and worrying about it, and then saying, okay, I need to find a new supplement that will help me. All of those things are ways of reinforcing the danger and the signals that your brain is getting. So I mean, it's quite a tough question to answer, but I would say with all of these strange experiences, and there will be many, many more, we're trying to work to a position of accepting them in the moment.
I love it. I 100% agree. I think that's a really important answer. All right, next question we have from Patty. I've been using Freeme for a while now, but lately I just forget about it because I have other stuff to do. And then I think I'm already better than I was before. So using it, then forgetting to use it, but it's helping. So do you have any tips for, I guess, building that habit?
I mean, one of the brilliant messages here is, as best as you can, is to move on and get on with your life. Genuinely, the best thing that can ever happen is you stop using Freeme in a really good way, right? So if you, though, I think I see this all the time. I get emails saying, I'm not sure I'm doing enough. And actually my response is, I have people, I'm not sure I'm using it in the right way. And I'm not sure, and people are trying to schedule, okay, I'm going to wake up every morning. And as part of my recovery routine, I'm going to do 15 minutes meditation. Then I'm going to do a Freeme session. And then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And before you know it, you're building up this giant list of things in your head that you must do in order to recover. And half of these are subconscious. And if you've ever spent any time on Instagram, you are adding about 50 things to your list that these people are telling you must do. And that itself is a huge source of stress. So, I mean, yes, dig in, please come back and use Freeme occasionally, but do it in a casual way. And it's another thing actually we get where sometimes people want rigid structure. They want rigid, do this at this time. Here's your routine, come back to X sessions a day. And part of the message is to let go of that, to do everything in balance and moderation, and to recognize that all of these musts we have in our head, all this long list of things, are actually, in a way, can contribute to keeping us in this state, in quite a big way. So yeah, be happy to see you back in a balanced way and with moderation.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's that same message, confusing message we keep giving people, which is, we got to work on your recovery and make it a priority, but you do that by not working on your recovery and don't make it a priority. It's a bit of a balancing act. I think we're all wired a little bit differently. I'm a creature of habit. I like routine. And if I'm enjoying something, like I'm using Freeme, I'm going to want to make sure I do it. So I'm going to like habit stack it. I'm going to pair it with my morning tea or something, or I'm going to have an alarm that goes off every day.
Yeah.
But to your point, if it starts feeling like work or a chore, or you don't feel that you need it anymore, then it's not a helpful addition to your day.
or if you're beating yourself up for not doing it. At the
Yes.
point where you're beating yourself up for not doing it, it's time to actually ease off. And
Mm.
you need to understand about me to understand that this is 3 years ago. This is the most hypocritical advice I could ever give anyone. The other day I was digging in my desk and I found this, I found my notebook from 3 years ago, and it was a point where I was ill, and I just literally explained to me in the notebook why I was ill. I had this like rigid idea. I just left the military. Funny enough, I don't think that helped. I was just entering civilian life, and I was telling myself, right, you've got to make it in normal life now, and these are all the things you must do. And I literally had lists of my musts, and these are the things I should be doing for general health, you know, and for recovery. And these lists were huge. And all these things that then what happens is you set this crazy high standard for yourself. Because it's unrealistic, you are inevitably going to not achieve it. You're going to let yourself down, and then you're going to beat yourself up for not doing it. Then you're going to be in the crap place, and then you're going to set a new crazy high standard again, and then you're going to fail to achieve that. And you're going to end up in this cycle, which is, of course, hugely stressful and really bad for your nervous system.
Yeah.
And so please understand that that advice is hypocritical and comes from a place, I would have been exactly that. I would have had a rigid schedule. I need to do this every morning at 9 a.m. or whatever time, and I would, be rigid. And I'm now reformed.
I heard something somewhere that I found really helpful, and it is the approach for life, for everything in your life, to embrace the ish, whether it's your diet, your meditation, your career, your finances, your relationships.
Yeah.
Like, did you eat well today? Yeah, ish. Or I had a terrible day. Well, was the whole day terrible? Well, no, it was like kind of bad-ish, but just get comfortable with that gray, because we really do strive for extremes
I
in
like
things,
it.
and it's just exhausting. And no one achieves it. No
Yeah.
one out there is getting it all
Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah.
I love that. It's, I've said it before, balance, moderation, not sexy concept, but they're incredibly
Yeah.
powerful for nervous system regulation.
All right,
Anything you
DJ
start with emotion.
Obi-Wan, we have the emotional component stumbles me. Are there techniques to work on your emotional side, especially subconscious stored emotions? I see a lot of statements telling you to address your emotions. Yeah, that's a good question. Like, okay, address my emotions. What emotions? And if they're suppressed, how do I know what they are? And how do I deal with them? How do I start to address
Yeah.
that aspect? So yeah.
Your comment obviously comes from what I guess either what I've said or that what this field of neuroscience, nervous system regulation, mind work is telling you, part of which is that emotional suppression can contribute to keeping the nervous system in fight or flight. There are loads of studies about this. There's one specifically for MECFS that's definitely worth checking out, where they took a group of people and looked at their responses to emotion and how that affected their actual fatigue levels. That's also fascinating and worth reading. But in answer to literally a direct answer to how you do it, the first part is noticing your emotion. And when I say noticing your emotion, it's recognizing that most of your emotion is felt in the body. That was, again, complete news to me before my recovery. And there are lots of people who, I remember a few months ago speaking to somebody who recovered, and she told me that it took her 2 years. This is a fully recovered person, by the way, who's now very active. It took her 2 years to truly learn to feel her emotions and feel emotions in the body. And it took me quite a while as well. And so the first stage is literally noticing and feeling emotions. And that might take some time for you to feel them in the body and notice it. And there's a technique called labeling. You literally, I'm feeling anger. That's a first huge, massive step. The next step is learning to express your emotions. Expressing your emotions means the opposite of expression. It is talking about them, showing them, not being ashamed of them, not pushing them down. That's expressing emotions. And there's another key part here, which is actioning your emotions. And I honestly think that's probably the most important things, because emotions, and again, this all would have sounded, if I played this clip to me now 3 years ago, and definitely 5 years ago, when I was a Royal Marine Commando, I'd have been like, what is this woo-woo rubbish that I'm hearing this person speak about? But there is loads of science that shows it and supports it. But anyway, actioning emotion is the most important part. It's because the emotions are existing as messages. They are all telling you to do something. when you are angry, and this is probably the most important one, it is a message for you to assert yourself, to set boundaries, to stick up for yourself. And when you don't do that, that's what's causing the problem. That's when the nervous system goes, I've given you this message, you need to stick up for yourself. You haven't, you've ignored it. And I'm going to keep ramping up symptoms, and I'm going to keep getting in a more ramped up state until you actually start taking action on it. And there are literally you can get and you should look at a list of each emotion and what they're telling you to do. And in a way, this stuff should be all the most natural, normal stuff for humans to do. Every other animal does it. We as humans are just rubbish, and it is definitely, I think, societal programming that is to blame, or it is partly for me, but it's a reason why we have to learn it at this age. But Raylan, can you give us your thoughts as well?
Yeah, that was all excellent. I agree 100%. The only thing I would add in, and it's so unsexy and nobody wants to hear this, but journaling can change your life. And if
Yeah.
you do it in a way that is completely honest, some people write it down and then burn it. And I call it unpacking the ugly. Like, get at all those things you're carrying around that you think are too horrible to look at, or shame you might be carrying about certain things about yourself or your past, or anger or resentment, or maybe they're things from so long ago that you're like, I should be over this by now. Why I don't, it doesn't even deserve my time. But just really get honest with yourself and just write down whatever comes out. And it doesn't mean it's true. Like I interviewed someone who said, and she said, I wrote down, I hate being a mother. And when she really got, thoughts aren't facts. When she really broke it down, she didn't, but it helped her get at the root of what she was carrying around. So just let yourself, just be really honest. How do you feel? What are you carrying? What are those uglies you've got in there that you don't think deserve to see the light of day? Let them come out. Shine a light on them. Say hello. And they're probably not as intense as you think they are. And they say an emotion
Raylan,
felt,
have you
an
had
emotion changed. So it can go a long way.
I was going to say, have you had Nicole Sachs on this channel? I think you
I
have, right?
have. Yeah, I have. I can link that in the
Yeah.
description.
Okay.
She's a
Well,
powerhouse.
everyone needs to go check out her book, don't they?
Yeah,
Her book
yeah,
is
yeah.
incredible. She's just got a
She
new one
breaks
out.
down in her book,
Mind Your
journal,
Body.
a process called journal speak,
Mind Your
which,
Body. Really good
yeah,
book.
really good
Go
book.
read it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
last question, and then we're talking about all these great tools, but we haven't talked about the tools that are in Freeme, really how that works. So let's take one last question here from Maggie, and then walk us through what Freeme is. So how do I stop linking between the activity and the flare-up?
Yeah, so the background to this
Good
question
question.
is that when you link the activity and the flare-up, you anticipate the flare-up, and that anticipation causes your nervous system to go into fight or flight, and it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think you're going to go into you're going to get symptoms, that will exacerbate, at least at the complete minimum, that will exacerbate the symptoms. If I took you to a room and said, in 2 minutes time, I'm going to send you into this room and there's a tiger in there and you've got to fight it, your body will ramp up to prepare you. Nothing's happened to you yet, and yet your body will go wild trying to get you ready. It will cause physiological changes all across the all the way down the body. And that's a really good analogy or background for where this question is coming from. So it's useful for us to break the link between an activity and symptoms. How do you do that? You need to think about how your brain is inherently wired to protect you, which means that when you normally do this unthinkingly, your brain remembers all the times that the activity did lead to the symptoms, and it forgets all the times when actually you're okay or you're a little bit better than you expected. I can give you an example. 15 years ago, I was at university and had a night out where we drank nothing but tequila. That night, I'm in the toilet throwing up. The following morning, I'm in the toilet throwing up. It's horrible. If someone offers me tequila now, it still makes me want to vomit straight away. That's a memory from 15 years ago, which is ingrained in my brain to protect me, to keep me away from tequila, even though 2 days' time I will recover from that hangover. So you've got to understand that your brain will always remember all of the times that it turned out bad, that things did turn out bad, that you got symptoms, and it will forget all the times it turned out okay. So the answer to your question is, you break the link by recording all the times that it was better than expected. Either you didn't get symptoms or that symptoms weren't as bad. And you are slowly refocusing your brain and reteaching it to actually remember all the times that it did it. And then you should remind yourself that actually your response to what you're going through matters, and you have the ability to change your symptoms by not creating that link. And creating the links is always unhelpful. Sometimes the next question people always ask every single time was, I have this thing and I know this causes symptoms. If that's the case, and there are things, the nervous system takes its cues from both physical things and things going on in the brain. If that's the case, it's still not good to create the link, because what happens is you're then reinforcing the link. It's becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. You're increasing the fear as time goes on. So the fear is ramping up. You're then avoiding more and more things, which overall is just leading to an overall worsening of your condition. So even if it's a real thing, imagine you say, and let's be honest, if most people with MECFS, if you go out tomorrow and, I don't know, try and do a heavy weightlifting session or try and run a marathon, that's going to bring on symptoms regardless. And so even if that's the case, you still want to try and break the link, because it's going to exacerbate and worsen the response you get if you're anticipating and thinking symptoms. How do you do it? You record all the times where things turned out better than you expected. And slowly, I promise you, you will surprise yourself. Very soon you will be like, hang on, I always had this belief that this thing caused symptoms. I had this rigid belief, and I again, this was me. I would have rigid things. I know if I do that thing, I will get symptoms. And then I started writing them down. I'd be like, I just did this, and actually, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as I initially thought. And then I started having times when I did this thing. I 100% believed that doing X, having a freezing cold shower, eating whatever pizza, caused symptoms. And I've just done it and I haven't got symptoms. So it's also about being open and curious to the idea that actually it could be what's going on in your brain.
Yeah, I like how you keep talking about the evidence, and it doesn't even have to be about that specific activity. You can just keep a log of all the things that you're able to do on your good days or your better days that show you that your body is actually okay. So if you could do it on those days, you could do it on other days. And then when symptoms do come up, you know, it's just your nervous system putting on a show, and it's unpleasant, but you're like, hey, I see you. And just reminding yourself, everything's fine. I am okay. It's unpleasant feeling these, but my body is okay. Everything is fine. You know, I think that is, really important to remember.
It's a good question. Yeah.
We're coming up on time here, but we got to make sure, I really want to make sure that we go through the Freeme app. So we keep talking about it. So someone gets the app. What does that do for them? How do they use it? How does this support recovery?
Yeah, so like I spoke about earlier, actually, firstly, Freeme doesn't give you a rigid, here's what you should do every single day. In fact, you go on every single day and whenever you want, and you literally just say, do a session. It's like, what do you want to do today? It gives you 4 options. It gives you education, brain training, writing exercises, and which one have I missed? Education, brain training, writing, and meditation. Have I covered 4? Brain training, writing, education, meditations. I can't. You're going to get some exercises. And do you know what? We have covered lots of them today. So if you want lots of things covering everything we've spoken about. So for example, let's take emotional suppression, because again, it's one of my favorite things because it's so clear what the science shows us. So it starts with education sessions where you actually learn about it. You see the science about it, you can understand. Then it gives you brain training sessions, so you can actually put some of it into practice. Then it gives you writing exercises, so you can actually, again, like you said, you can journal about your real raw feelings without judgment. And then meditations, there we go, I've got them. Big 4. And then you're going to meditate and you're going to learn to sit and actually feel those emotions. So it kind of hits it from multiple ways. But the general premise of me is taking all of the commonly accepted approaches which have shown to be effective, that all the practitioners that Raylan you've had on your channel, and taking all those approaches and putting it into one app and making it the easiest thing in the world, and just making it super accessible. Like you can just go on, you can hit play for a session, you can be lying on your back with the bed and lying on your back in your bed, and you can still do it. That's the point of Freeme. Obviously it was built out experiences, And when I was in that place, I knew I needed something which would have been able to help me. And there are supporting tools. We've talked about AI. It's going to be incredible at the end of each session to then be able to just ask any question and go, yep, finish that session. And they're like, yeah, but how do I apply it for me? What if? And then insert any of the questions we've had today. What if I've also got these coexisting conditions? You know, to be able to ask genuinely any question is exciting. So it just tries to wrap all that into one place in the easiest and simplest way so that you can do it in whatever state you're in.
And I know it's not broadly available yet, and it will be coming out in the next week, but what is some of the early feedback you've got from people who are using it?
From the AI features in particular?
Oh, for just the app itself, any feedback from people who are using it?
Genuinely incredible. And after a couple of weeks, the app asks what you're doing and your current state and what you're useful. And to be able to and click through those is one of the most incredible things that could happen to any human. And when you seeing people improve and seeing after they ask you after 2 weeks, or whatever, to see that the majority of people saying improve is just like lovely, an incredible thing. And to have people, I think this happens actually, I hear it on all the time on your channel. People have to be in the right place sometimes and the right time for their journey. To have people who have said, you know, like I've tried this over multiple years. So several years ago, I was trying lots of stuff around meditation. I was doing a little bit of brain training, and then it's finally clicked is incredible. And then it's genuinely, I don't know if we mentioned it last time, but Freeme makes it incredibly simple by just giving you, literally offering you all your money back if you don't find it helpful. That makes me just be able to sleep at night, whatever happens. So we set up early on, we used to do it through the Apple Play Store and Google Play Store, and that's where you can actually download the app. But if you pay through them, they just restrict your refunds. I think after a month that that's it, you've used it. And I'm like, no, I want to be able to literally make it the most simple thing in the world, what I would have wanted, which is that, look, you come and try it, see what you think. And if you don't find it helpful or you want your money back for literally any reason after any time, you can now buy through the website, where if you message me in 5 years' time and go, do you know what, that wasn't helpful, I think that's the right way. Because when I was ill, I had already tried hundreds, probably thousands of things, and you want something that either somebody's confident in or that someone's willing to put their money in their mouth, where their mouth is. And that feels to me to be the right way to do it. So that's my promise to anyone, is try it, see if you find it helpful. If you don't, I would be honored and very happy to give you every single penny of your money back.
Absolutely incredible. And of course, all of this will be linked in the video description. We'll pin it in the comments after this live session is done. Thank you so much for all of you who joined. And thank you for your patience. I know we've had some technical difficulties, and I know we've been breaking in and out a little bit. Can't control the internet. So thanks if you stuck around to the end. Appreciate you hanging out with us. And please continue, if you watch this after it's live, throw your questions in the chat. We'd love to hear them there as well. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm so excited about this app. So incredible that we now have something for MECFS and long COVID. So needed. You're an incredible person, and you're just helping so many people. I appreciate you, and thank you for doing this live. I know it's not the easiest thing being in the hot seat.
Not at all. I appreciate you and what you've done. I've said it before, but the amount of people I refer the other way to say, go do your own experiment, go to Ryan's channel, watch 250 recovery videos. Obviously, no one's going to have time for that, but watch as many as you can and tell me the trends you see. And it's a huge resource to everyone. And you know it is, and you'll have been told it many times, but what you're doing is incredible. And I'd love to appear back anytime you'd have me.
You're welcome back anytime. I love having you. All right. Thanks again for everyone who joined.
We're live to make you say that, or you also say that I'm welcome back.
I mean it, of course. I would love to have you back. I'd have you here every week if you were up for it. All right. Thanks everyone who joined live. Thanks to those of you who are watching after for some comments. And thank you again, Chris. That's a wrap for today. Goodbye, everyone.